It's taken a long time, but we've moved on to the second part of the engine rebuild in your front room series. Sorry, been a little bit busy, didn't mean it to take this long. So we are going to strip down the cylinder head of the KZ250 Limited. And we're going to check the valve seats. And we are also going to show you how to grind them and check that they're ground in correctly. It's a nice, easy job, to be honest. It's not massively difficult. A lot of people shy away from it, but I think this is something that you can do in your front room or in your little shed at home. Right, let's get on with it. Okay, so let me get a little light on here because the light in my front room isn't all that brilliant. Hopefully you can see much better. We have set up the valve compression tool or valve removal tool. You've got one seat on the face of the valve itself, and you have the other one located here where the spring sits. Now, to do this efficiently and without losing things, I'd recommend a cheap little magnet. That won't work because it's aluminium. Okay, and all you're going to do is once you've got it seated as square as possible, if I can get this so you guys can see it. It's a one person, one camera job. Doesn't make a very great shot, and I do apologise for that. I hope you're getting the footage. I will check it. If you don't, I'll reshoot. So that was a challenge. It turns out my iPhone is full of a load of stuff that I'm not deleting on a regular basis. So we're going to go for that again. When I do this, I'm going to stick this in a drill. I'm not doing this up too tight. I'm not trying to damage it. What I'm going to do is very carefully I'm doing it behind the phones. The phone's in front of me. This is not the easy thing. Trying not to go up here because this is where the valve stem oil seal sits. Well, this is gentle Scotch, but I don't want to wear that down because I'll end up with oil passing through it. Again, with a little bit of a rub. Then on the face to make it as shiny and as clean as possible. The shinier and the cleaner it is, the less likely carbon is to stick to it. I mean, it will, but you can make it different. Now, when we inspect this valve, I would actually, if I was rebuilding this for a paying customer, replace that because of all of this here. I'd replace it. This is out of a really old bike that's been sat around for a long time. This valve is not in the best condition, but we are building a bike in our front room, trying not to spend any money, giving you a demonstration on what you can do and how you can do it in your house. Now, valve grinding time. It's the fun part. Like hell it is. It's going to be one of the most frustrating jobs you can ever do this. Oh, there's a shim there that come out the back on sits on the bottom down here. As you look in here, you'll see the valve stem oil seal. Now, I don't really want to get a load of crap all over that valve stem oil seal, so I'm going to take a little bit of lubricant to make life easier. I'll spray it on this part here. Okay, so it makes it nice and easy to move. I'm going to take, this is my valve grinding paste, Chemco. It's like the most common one. The best place to find this is actually auto jumbles because the older stuff is the best stuff. This is not older stuff, and I can assure you it's not the best. I'll wipe a bit round, a bit more. Like that. Nice even smear of it. Try and do this so you can see how I do this. I'm going to slide this in here. Like that. Then what I'm going to do is take a valve grinding stick. I hope this sticks to it. Like that. And then pull it out, thump it down, pull it out, thump it down. Remember, this is building at home. In my workshop, I've got a specialist bench to do this with. Well, not a specialist bench, but I've got a bench that I can set up and hold this down so this doesn't wobble about and cause me so much grief trying to do it. And I also have little containers to put stuff in so I don't lose it. Right. It's going to face me for a little while now because I need to get this so I can show you the next stage. in the lap it goes. So I will quite often stick this in my lap and hold it like this. It's really, really difficult. There is no other easy way of doing this. Some people use drills. I've done that a couple of times, but I don't think it's the best way to do it. I'm not saying don't do it that way. You can do it that way. People do. I think you can overgrind the seat, cause yourself problems. Now, I don't need to grind this in loads. What I'll do is go and get some rag and wipe that up so you can see what I've done. You should see a grey line all the way around there. Focus camera. An even grey line. Now if we look really closely, there's some pitting in here. Okay, we might have to replace these valves even though we're trying to do a cheap build, because that will not seal and that will make the engine run really, really badly. And I reckon these valves are probably a tenner each, 15 quid each, okay? But we're going to continue with this so I can show you the principle of it. If I buy new valves, I'll show you me grinding the new valves in. So once we've done that, I'm now going to take a tissue and wipe out the rough stuff. And I'm going to swap ends. I've done the coarse, go to the fine. And the principle again is exactly the same. Although for some reason I like grinding the fine stuff more. Hopefully you can see this. I will check this before I upload the video, of course. And my fantastic editing skills that I haven't found and developed yet. Okay. Oh, I wonder if the small one will sit in the divot. There's a big divot in this valve, which makes it hard. That's better. With a sucker, to see. Now, this isn't an hour long process, or hours of process. This is I do a bit, I check it, I do a bit and check it. I don't want to make the valve seat too big. I don't want to grind it too far. And wipe that off. Again, I'm going to check the band. Now the other one I'm going to check the band is I've got the manual here. The manual will state that the service limit and the thickness of my valve, so this edge here, should be no more than the service limit thickness is 0.7 of a millimetre. These are my verniers. I'm going to zero them. You can get a set of verniers off of Amazon for about 20 quid. These ones are a bit more than that, but they're... So the service limit is 0.7. And I make that around about 1.3. So we're well in limit. We're almost double what the service limit is. So we're not worried about that. Then the other thing we're going to check is my valve seating width, which I've got to find. So that's my wobble clearance. Valve seating width should be 0.5 to 1 mil. Well, I think that's well over that. It's more like 10 yards. Yeah, that is. I'm either measuring the wrong thing. That's not that bit there, is it? It can't be right. Seating width. No, I'm not reading that right. Yeah, so actually, I'm not measuring it wrong. This valve is, I think, is out of tolerance. I might have to recut this face. So the other way we can do this, we've got this other product called Engineer's Blue. Now, this is not going the way I wanted it to. I was hoping these valves would limit the tolerance, so it can make this an easy job. But this demonstrates to you that things aren't always as you want them to be. sometimes shit's just broken or beyond repair and you have to buy new parts or you can't get into your engineer's blue. I'm not going to turn the camera off while I struggle with this. I know some people would, but I refuse to do that. I'm going to hit it with my Mac tool screwdriver until the bastard comes off. Buy a tin, I thought. It's cheaper than the spray. Come off, you. Cry in a minute. Having myself a little cry, I think. God, that is on there. It's as tight as a bank vault. I think we're moving it. We're moving it. I know there's so many people out there going, Jesus Christ. Come on, lad, get it open. See, there's so many people watching my videos. Sorry. For those of you who are watching, thank you very much. Watching a technician struggle. I appreciate it. In a minute, I'm just going to stab a hole in it. Can't get caught doing that on someone misses table. She'll beat me with a stick. I wonder if I can leave it open with this fork that's here. I'll stab myself. Who's going with the stabbing myself? Oh, almost. Got to watch this stuff as well, because this stuff gets everywhere. I've got a fork trying to undo this, because this is what happens when you try and build stuff in your front room. But I need a tool. Shit, don't have that tool. Terribly upsetting. I bought this engineer's blue off of Amazon. It's not dig at Amazon. I bought loads of good stuff off Amazon. This is not one of them. And I just pushed it down more. I know there are people who do watch this and be like, come on mate, that can't be that difficult. It really is that difficult, yeah. No, I'm not gonna lie, it really is that difficult. I don't have small hands, and I still can't get it off. I'm gonna muller the can up now, just to get it off. I'm sick of it. Like that didn't work. We're so close. See this sticky horrible crap here? Yeah, that's what we're going to use. So now we've got it open, not getting it all over my front room, because although I don't have the nicest house in the world, my missus will be very cross, and rightfully so, if I wreck her front room. I mean, any more than I already have as a mechanic, with my greasy hands and my dirty trainers. Well, a bit of engineer's blue on there. Okay, try not to get it everywhere. Now, in theory, we're going to see where the mating face is on this. So now I'm going to take this, I'm going to aim this down a little bit. And quite aggressively, I'm going to slam that in there. Now push it back up. And what we'll see is we'll see where this is mating and where it's not mating. So this bit here is not where it's touching. So there, gases will leak through that low in the compression ratio. So if that's not mating right, when the piston comes up to close this off and this fires a spark, that will allow that will stop that, sorry, prevent that from igniting evenly and giving us an even burn. So we can deduce from building our head at home today that I need to have my valve seats recut and I need new valves. This, I mentioned about gases leaking through the exhaust valve. What I'd like to point out to you, less so on motorbikes, is in the UK we don't have motorbikes tested for emissions, but we do cars. If you've got a leaky valve or a valve that isn't seated right on a vehicle, when you have an emissions test, you'll have a higher amount of hydrocarbons, which is unburnt fuel in your exhaust emissions, which will put it up. So this is one of the reasons why after a while engines will need an overhaul. They'll need their valves reseating and regrinding and reseating, because you think how much that valve goes up and down and how hard it's hitting that head over a period of 100,000 miles, 150,000 miles, 200,000 miles, or a very short period for race engines when they're up there in the rev range. They're making those engines work very, very hard. So it's important to understand, as someone who isn't a vehicle technician, when a garage mechanic says to you, excuse me, I'm just going to plug my microphone in. When a garage mechanic says to you, you may need to have your valves reseated and your cylinder head rebuilt, they don't want to do that work. That's a lot of work, but they do it because they know that that's a necessity for you to have done. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to reassemble this manky valve that we know is no good back in the head to show you how to fit your collets or your valve retaining clips, depending again where you are in the world. I think the Americans, our cousins across the pond, call them valve retaining clips, and we call them collets in the UK. So we're going to go back to using the valve spring compressor. I'm going to show you the struggle of putting them back together. But what we'll do is I'll get some valves ordered. I will get a valve cutting, a seat cutting kit, which I will need a 45 degree, a 30 degree and a 75 degree for this head. And hopefully we will have enough seat. Where's my head torch so you can actually see what I'm looking at, rather than you all thinking, mate, we can't see what you're doing. Hopefully we will have enough seat left on that to grind it in and not grind it in, sorry, to recut the seat. If we recut the seat with and get new valves, then this should have another 30, 40, 50,000 miles in it as a little single cylinder engine before we have to do this again, if not more, if it's treated right. So let's do that, and then we'll call this one quits. We will look at getting bits to show you the next stage, hopefully. So I'm not going to readjust the camera. I'm just going to aim it down a little bit so you can see, because this could be quite fiddly. So first of all, remember that shim that came out? It's an aluminium head. The shim wants to go back on here, okay, to make sure that goes in there and it's seated correctly. Then I'm going to slide my valve back up in here, up in there, pushing it past the valve stem wall. So pretty sure I've changed the valve stem. That valve stem wall doesn't look old. I can't remember if this is the engine I've had apart. I've got two of these bikes and one of the engines has been apart already. Then I'm going to take my springs, make sure both are in there, otherwise you'll have a huge problem when it comes to starting the bike. Not that we're starting this anytime soon. And then I'm going to slide the top hat over the top. I call it a top hat. I don't know what other people call it. I don't really care. And this is just the reverse of what we did before, but when I say it's just the reverse, it's easier said than done, again. It's just the reverse, Chris. Fiddly job in the world. There are some really cool head building tables that you can get, but there's no point with single cylinder heads. And they're all gas operated, well not gas operated, but they're operated by compressed air. And let's see if I can stand this up here so I get this in the right position. So this is in the wrong position, you are not getting those collets back in. I'm going to tighten it down trying to keep it as central as possible, he says. A bit more. Dropping stuff on the floor. Oh, that should give us enough space. So, a quick look in there. The space we need. There's the magic of grease now. Takes a bit of grease. Take my screwdriver. Cover my screwdriver in a bit of grease. I'll take one of my collets. Try and do this so you can see it, so I can see it. It's going to be quite a challenge. I suppose that's YouTube. I'm trying to help people, teach people, and I've already must see that this is a fiddly old job, this. Get it seated in there. That looks actually quite seated well. I'll pull it over slightly. Again, same principle. The grease just helps it hold in. These are some easier ones. The smaller ones are the most difficult ones. If you've got a 16 valve, you've got something like a 16 valve cylinder head. You've got 16 of these to do. The valves are usually smaller. Causes somewhat a little bit of grief, and at some point, if you do this regularly, you will lose a collet or two. Anyone who's built an engine goes, they've never lost a collet or two. And as you wind it up, you're going to make sure it's seating properly. If one of those collets doesn't seat properly, and you was to put this back on the vehicle and start it up, bad things are going to happen. Really bad things. Things you don't want to be responsible for. So always make sure it's seated properly. So I'm going to wind this out. Let's see how that's seating. Okay, so that's that off. We check it. Make sure it's in. Now what I would do if I was in the workshop, I'd get a rubber mallet and I'd give that a tap, make sure it's seated properly. So ka-ting, ka-ting. I've tapped these before and the collet's gone ka-ting because it hasn't just quite, the grooves haven't got in the top of the thing. And now I'd rather shoot a collet across the workshop and have to order another one than put it in a customer's vehicle and it die then. So always check that with a little tap and make sure that is seated properly. That is how you remove and reseat a cylinder head. Now, if I wanted to check that using some fluid to see if that was seated, I could fill that up with some brake cleaner or some brake fluid, something, preferably brake cleaner is quite good. And then you could blow air through this bit here. If you start to see bubbles arising in this area, which we worked out was around here, if I remember rightly, bubbles would come out of here. I haven't got an airline in my front room, keeping a compressor in your house, something even mechanics don't do. Or most of them anyway. So we're going to order some new valves for this and then we'll go from there. That's that, and that's how you do it. Now the tools that I've used, genuinely the tools that I've used to do this little video is this little cheap Nielsen valve spring compressor, which you can get in the UK from places like JR's, Euro Car Parts, and it will cost you about 15, 20 quid. They really are not expensive. They go in this nice little case. Stick it in your garage, doesn't take up loads of room, but it saves you borrowing it. The rule of two, if you have to borrow something twice, buy it. Let's take that off my head. Because if you've got to buy it twice, it means you're going to use it more often, so buy it. And for 15 quid, 20 quid, you can do your own valves at home. If you're building your own calf racer or you're having a little bit of a play of a classic bike in the garage, it's worth having. The other tool I used, quite simply, a Mac tool screwdriver, a cheap magnet, some grease. Oh, it fell on the carpet. My valve grinding stick, they're about 3 quid. They're not even a lot of money. You will throw them away though. Once you've used them once or twice, you'll throw them away. They just become useless. In all the 120 years of the combustion engine, how the hell we haven't come up with a more sophisticated tool to use, I don't know. It would be nice if we did. People are thinking, well, if it's that easy, Chris, why don't you do it? Because I'm not a design engineer. I'm a technician. I take stuff apart that people have designed and then fix it when it breaks. The engineer's blue, the messiest substance on the planet. Don't buy the tin. You see the struggle I've had. Buy the other way to do it. You can get it with a spray can, or you can get it with a little thing, and your Chemco. So far you've got 15, 20, so 20 quid for the valve spring compressor. This stuff's about a five, it's 25 quid. That stuff was about 8 to 10 quid, so 35 quid. Screwdriver set costs 25 quid on Amazon. They're about a fiver. So the tools to take your valves apart are going to run you in less than 50 quid, and they could save you thousands of pounds if you know what you're doing and you're prepared to get a little bit messy. Again, one thing that I can't stand is when people go, anyone can do this. If you can't do it, if it's not in your remit to do it, don't think, I'm going to do that just for the sake of it, because you might cost yourself a little bit more money by making a costly mistake. Maybe get an old engine or an old head out of the scrapyard and practice if you want to. I enjoy building heads. So that's it really. That is the second stage. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see, but I will not take the inlet valve out, purely for the fact that I'm going to buy 2 new valves and get a seat cutter. When I get the seat cutter, the valve seat cutter, we'll make a video of how to cut the seats. And then when we do that, we'll also use a DTI, a dial indicator, to check the movement on the valve, to make sure that the valve guides themselves aren't worn. If the valve guides are worn and the valve seats are worn and need replacing, in theory that engine, the bike's not worth doing. But I'm going to do it because I've had the bike since I was 15 years old, and it's been sitting in garages since I was 15 years old, and I've done nothing with it, and I think it deserves it. You've seen a picture of the bike. I'll show you a picture again. This is the bike. I don't want it to look like that. Maybe you guys can give me some ideas whether you think I should hardtail chopper it, or turn it into a calf racer, or turn it into a brat scrambler. I've already started to modify the frame, which we can add into the videos if you want to. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you like the video, please like and subscribe.